Welcome back to BNC World Headquarters. Today, New York reported its lowest number of daily COVID-19 deaths in weeks. The state said there were 422 deaths Thursday. That's the fewest since March 31st. It's been a long, painful 3 weeks. More than 16,000 people have died in New York from the outbreak. Stay-at-home orders are causing a lot of stress for families, for those who were employed before the crisis and are no longer working, but especially for those who didn't have a home to stay in. The Black News Channel's Ashley Liotus found a program that's reaching out and making changes during this crisis.
COVID-19 has impacted virtually everyone across the world. With stay-at-home orders in effect, tight budgets, and unemployment, it's a very tough time for many. But what about those people who didn't have access to essentials even before the pandemic hit?
When you say that governors and the president promulgate orders that require that we stay at home, it means one thing if you have a home, but what does it mean if you don't have a home?
That's where Covenant House comes in. The organization provides things like food, shelter, and education to young homeless children across 31 cities and 6 different countries. The children are usually between the ages of 16 and 21 and need help getting back on their feet.
According to the University of Chicago Chapin Hall's Research Center, there are 4.2 million young people in the United States who experience homelessness in a given year. And Black and African American children are 83% more likely to experience homelessness than white children. That statistic plays itself out in Covenant House every single day in every city. That's not an accident. That is the result of a social construct that is essentially driving families into poverty and, as a result of that, leading many kids onto the streets.
Now that more and more of those kids on the street are flocking to places like Covenant House during the COVID-19 pandemic, new challenges have arose.
It's a huge challenge for us to try to bring every needy young person inside Covenant House, but make sure that we don't create a petri dish for the virus to infect healthy kids. So we need to make sure that we're creating as much space inside Covenant House as we can, but we also have to make sure that the beds are 10 feet apart. And we have to make sure that they're safe spaces for young people so that they're not on top of each other.
Plus, each Covenant House has had to rework its interior, creating quarantine spaces to use for children who are sick or symptomatic. Not to mention the influx of meals they now need to provide for these kids.
A lot of the kids were going to school or they were working, so they might have 1 or 2 meals a day at Covenant House, but they were eating breakfast or lunch at college or university or high school, or they were picking up a meal in between shifts at the restaurant where they were working. Well, now that more than 90% of the young people are unemployed because they've lost their jobs and schools have shuttered, kids are expecting and needing all of their meals at Covenant House. So we're serving somewhere in the order of 40,000 meals a week. And that is a huge uptick for us across all 31 cities.
And then there's education.
Imagine that you are a sophomore or a junior or a senior in college, and in February you're in a dorm and you're thinking about, what am I going to do this summer? Am I going to do an internship? How am I going to do in my classes? And now 6 weeks later, you are in a homeless shelter with other adolescents trying to make sure you can access the Wi-Fi so that the bandwidth is strong enough and routine enough for you to be able to participate in school if there is school available to you. And then what about, do you have a Google Chromebook? So we have been putting out the SOS to every donor we can get our hands on to ask them to donate these Google Chromebooks or other devices so that young people who are trying to stay in school but are now in the shelter can in fact continue to be engaged in their studies.
The organization relies heavily on private donors and fundraisers, like the one happening on Friday night, Sleep Out America. Usually, people across the U.S. would sleep outside for the night to raise awareness and money for the group.
At the heart of this, it's about people coming together to be love in the world for kids. It's often a very uncomfortable night, but it's just one night. There are young people who are on the streets many, many, many more nights than that. But this year, it's not safe for anyone to sleep outside. So we've invited everyone to sleep inside. It could be in their backyards, but it's much more likely to be in their apartments or in their homes on the floor. And to help raise money through their family and friends to provide services, PPEs, food, and staffing at Covenant House in the United States and Canada.
That virtual sleep out is happening right now, but don't worry, it's not too late to sign up. You can just head to sleepoutamerica.org for all the information. You can sign up there, or you can even just make a donation. Reporting in New York City for the Black News Channel, I'm Ashley Liotus.